Okay, this is going to be a tutorial video on using the AeroCruze 100 Autopilot by Bendix King. And we've got it installed in the Cessna 172. And we will be demonstrating the different features of it this morning. As far as an autopilot's concerned, it's quite a capable piece of equipment, given the price and the ease of installation. It's not the same as your more expensive autopilot. It's got a few features it doesn't have. But by and large, it's a good autopilot for this class of airplane.
Okay, so after we've started up here, you see GPS okay here on the autopilot. That means the autopilot has run through its self-testing, and it's ready to be used. You see the plus here means that the autopilot is picking up a flight plan from our GPS, and the E means that it's connected to the G5. If the plus were an asterisk, it would mean it was connected to the GPS, but it didn't see a flight plan. So as long as we see those two things, either an asterisk or a plus, and the E, we know that it's connected to its two sources, which is in this airplane, our G5 and our Garmin 430 down here. And the self-test is complete. So there are two different ways to turn on the autopilot. The first and the most common way is just to come up here and press the knob.
Of course, that's after you've turned the Autopilot Master on.
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
So Autopilot Master on, and that comes on with our startup checklist.
Just push the knob?
So you just push the knob.
Okay, and I'm getting the E plus 0 bank.
Well, the plus E, that's not an indication of what the autopilot's doing, but it's in a 0 bank mode in SVS 0. So that the
SVS
lateral
stands for
selected vertical speed.
Vertical speed, okay.
The mode you're in is 0 degrees of bank, and it's gonna just maintain 0 feet per minute.
Okay. Okay, now to turn it off.
To turn it off, probably the two most common ways, especially from your seat, and you see after a while it just goes into the selected track mode.
Okay. We're tracking 333, which makes sense since we're paralleling runway 33.
Yep, and then the two most common ways to disengage the autopilot, especially from the pilot seat, is you have an autopilot disconnect control wheel steering button there on your yoke.
I'm gonna push that.
So all you do is you just press it.
Okay, and it went off.
Right. If you were to hold that button, that goes into control wheel steering mode.
I got you.
So press it to disengage. Okay. The other most common way to do it is I'm going to re-engage the autopilot. Okay. To turn it back off, hold the knob for 2 seconds. Autopilot off.
Now, can I turn it on with the CWS switch?
No.
Okay, so I have to turn it on by pressing the button there.
Pressing the knob, or
the knob, I mean.
Or you come up here and press the autopilot level button.
Okay, and we're gonna demonstrate that a little later.
We'll demonstrate that in flight.
But that turns it on in both the 0 bank and 0 SVS mode.
Right, and then again after a while it's going to go back to the. If you had left it on, it would have gone back to the selected track mode. Okay, so we're cruising here at 3,000 feet now, and we've already shown you how to turn the autopilot on and off. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain the different modes of the autopilot, starting with the lateral modes. So what I'm going to have you do is go ahead and engage the autopilot just by pressing the knob.
Okay.
And the first mode is track mode, and that's what it defaults to.
So it's tracking 306 degrees.
Right. So you have your track here, that's your actual ground track, and then the SEL is selected. That's your selected ground track.
With the line under the selected.
Right, with the line under it.
It acts like a cursor. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So we're in track mode right now, and the way to adjust that is to rotate the knob. So give me a track of 330.
Okay, so I'm going to turn this to 330.
And notice he did that just by turning the knob, and it did it in 5-degree increments. Give me a heading of 327.
327, so
you got to push
in, and then it changed it at 1 degree at a time.
So if you push in and twist, it does 1 degree increments.
Okay. So it's turning the airplane down to 327.
Right, the airplane's going to turn to 327 degrees, and it's going to make those two numbers match up.
Okay.
Now, as we're flying along here, you'll notice some different indications on the autopilot. We still have the plus and the E up there, like I explained, but also you notice this indication right here. It says down
Okay.
and it's pointing down. That means the autopilot's requesting you to add some nose down trim because we don't have electric trim in the airplane, so you manually have to help it out with the trim.
Okay, so I'm doing a little trim nose down, which I never did properly, probably with cruise flight.
There you go.
There you go. Okay.
And that just takes the load off the pitch servo.
Okay.
Okay, so that's your track mode. Next, we're going to talk about GPSS steering.
Okay.
So you have in here direct Lawrence.
All right.
And I'm okay with that. We can momentarily show them how this works. So why don't you first center your needle by going direct, enter, enter.
And it's behind us, 180
yeah,
degrees.
So it's going to be a big turn, but you'll see.
Okay. There's
and then
Lawrence.
Come up here, switch to the GPS source.
GPS source.
We're going to watch that E go out because now it's no longer connected to the G5 now.
Okay.
You took it from G5 mode to GPS mode,
All
so
right.
now it's just connected to our 430.
Okay.
And then press mode.
Mode to get the GPSS.
Now we're in GPSS.
Okay, now that turned the airplane.
So now the airplane's starting a turn towards that course to get us back to Lawrence. Our flight plan in there. Okay? Alright, so next we're going to do the G5 heading and altitude bug mode.
With the G5 being the source.
Yeah, right. So
I'm going to sync my heading.
So center your heading bug. You have 3,000 feet set here because that's where we want to be.
Okay.
Go ahead and hit mode to take it out of GPSS.
Okay.
Switch to the G5 autopilot source.
Okay.
And then hit mode again.
And hit mode again.
This time when he hits mode on the G5 source, it goes to external heading and external altitude, which means in the external source that it's referring to is the G5.
The G5, so I have my altitude in the G5 at 3,000.
So
and I have my heading bug set.
Correct. So it says external altitude, well, it's going to hold that 3,000 feet you have set here. External heading, it's going to hold whatever you have in the heading bug.
So
give me a right turn heading 270.
Okay, a right turn, so I take my heading bug over to 270.
Yep.
And the airplane should do about a standard rate turn on the autopilot over to 270.
Yep.
So we'll see if it does that and roll out.
So this is your heading mode, and it's essentially, a lot of autopilots might call it a heading mode. This is what we'd use if we were being vectored.
So we basically have two ways in the lateral mode to fly it, three ways if you count the heading. But you've got the heading bug you can follow, or you can follow a GPSS flight plan, or you can just go to the track that you want. So we really got three ways.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
And you can see it overshot a little bit, but it's going to come back and correct itself.
And that can be adjusted in the autopilot setup, the sensitivity.
Yeah.
We may not have it just right yet, but that's good enough. So now it's back on the heading mode. Okay, or on the heading mode.
Sure, right. Okay, so those are our lateral modes. Next we're going to talk about the vertical modes, and what I'm going to have you do is disengage the autopilot and then re-engage. Turn the autopilot off and then turn it.
Which way would you like me to turn it on or off? It doesn't matter to me. I got the control wheel steering. I got the pushing the knob here. And of course you can always turn off the autopilot master. So I'll just push the knob.
Yeah, hold it for 2 seconds.
You do hold it for 2 seconds.
Hold it for 2 seconds and
autopilot off. Okay.
All right.
Now I have control of the airplane.
Okay, so altitude hold mode.
Okay, so now we're going to do the vertical mode.
Yep, vertical modes. So the first one we're going to talk about is altitude hold mode, where you're already at the altitude that you want to hold.
Okay, so right now I'm at about 3,000 feet.
And you want to hold 3,000.
Okay.
Okay, so go ahead and engage the autopilot.
All right, and stay on the G5 source, because that's my navigation.
Well, yeah, that doesn't matter, because I'm just going to have you stay in the track mode.
Okay, so engage the autopilot.
Okay. And then come up here, press the altitude button.
Altitude.
And then hit set.
And hit set. And that's just going to hold right where I'm at.
And then set your vertical speed, because you're already there.
It's asking me to set.
Right.
So you do that with the cursor.
Yep.
Or with the, okay, now it went to hold. So it's going to hold 3,000 feet.
Yep. Okay. All right, so we're cruising along here in the external heading and external altitude mode, so we're connected to the G5, and we want to climb to 3,500 feet while we're in external altitude mode.
Okay, and that would be the altitude that's shown on my G5.
Correct.
Okay.
So go ahead and set your pre-select altitude on the G5, yep, to 3,500. And see, it defaults to 300 feet per minute climb. And see, it's already starting, the airplane's starting to climb, but we want to speed that up because we can climb a little faster.
Okay.
So I would say, what, 800 feet a minute?
All right, so full power, and we just turn the knob till we get to 700 feet a minute.
Yep, and you see 700 feet per minute with the up arrow.
Okay, and it's telling me it wants trim back. I'll probably do a limited amount of trim back because I'll just have to reset it. This autopilot would really work nice if we had electric trim, but we chose not to spend the money for electric trim and do it manually. Okay, so now it's climbing to 3,300 feet. It gets to
3,500.
Yeah, but through 33, when it gets to 35, it should level off.
Right. So in the G5 mode, I think it was within 200 feet of the altitude you selected, it goes to altitude hold. And it's just going to hold your pitch until you get there and then level off.
Okay. Nose is coming down.
All right, so we're leveling off at 3,500 feet.
Okay.
Once you get it cruised out, I'm going to have you go to track mode, selected track mode.
Okay. All right, so there we are. We got our power set, mixture set, and we're at 3,500. Now you want to go to track mode, and we can leave it in the G5 source, but by changing the mode here,
yep, just
we
press
put
mode
it into the mode autopilot, and there's my track, 004 degrees.
Yep, and now the autopilot is using its internal altimeter since it's no longer connected to the G5.
And I'm retrimming from the climb back to level flight here a little bit. Okay.
All right, now what I want to do is descend back to 3,000 feet and track 180.
Okay. So you don't care which one we do first?
I would do the lateral first.
Okay, so I'm going to turn left to 180 on the autopilot.
Well, it's going to...
Oops. Yeah,
there you go. Now
there you go. Okay, 180, and I'm going to descend now to 3,000 using my G5 source, or do you want me to?
It'll be using the autopilot.
Okay, so select altitude, and we're going to go down to 3,000.
And notice real quick, when you just turn the knob, it's 500-foot increments. It's the same thing we talked about in selected track mode. Push in and twist for 100-foot increments.
Okay.
But in this case, nice round number, 3,000.
And we're going to set that.
Set that, and let's go down.
The cursor goes down to 700 feet a minute.
Well, yeah, that's what you're climbing. I want 500.
I understand. So we want to set that.
No, you got to twist for 500.
Oh, okay.
And then set that.
And then set that.
And now you're good.
But I could have set it at 700 and then dialed to.
You could have, yes.
That's what I was going to do. Okay. So now we should start a descent at 500 feet a minute. We'll get a little power off here so we don't have to do a lot of retrimming.
And for general principles, you would set your pre-selected altitude in the G5 as well, but that doesn't affect anything right now.
Okay, but that's good practice.
Yeah, it's good practice.
We'll set 3,000 in there, set it, and we're going to 3,000.
Okay. All right, we're within 100 feet of our selected altitude, so it goes to altitude hold, and it's going to level off at 3,000.
Okay, and I'll bring the power back up to where I wanted it for cruise.
Okay, so we're cruising along here on our GPS flight plan, and we got an altimeter change. The altimeter is now 3014. So go over and set that in your G5.
Okay, so in my G5, I set 3011. I got it.
3014.
14, I'm sorry. Okay, got it.
3014, and of course we'd set the primary altimeter as well.
Okay.
Now, since the autopilot is not in the G5 source,
Because we're tracking the GPS flight plan.
Right.
Okay.
So you see we're in GPS mode. Since it's not in the G5 source, it cannot adjust for the altimeter setting.
Okay.
When it's in G5 mode, the altimeter in the autopilot syncs to the altimeter in the G5. But when you take it to GPS mode, it basically separates those two.
I got you.
And since we're in GPS mode, we're using the autopilot's internal altimeter.
Okay.
So we have to make those altimeter changes in the autopilot as well.
Oh, okay.
And the way we do that is hit altitude twice, real quick.
1, 2.
And it says alt sync.
Alt sync.
So we have to sync the altitude to what we read here.
My altitude now is 3030. 3030. So I'll go to 3000.
Twist to 3030.
30, okay.
And then set that. And there you go.
And it's going to take me back down to 3000, which is what I really wanted.
Yep. It's going to correct for that. All right, so now we're cruising along here, and we want to set up a pre-selected altitude with the autopilot off.
Okay.
So, and this is very useful on the ground. We can demonstrate it in flight as well.
But for takeoff, you could set it.
For takeoff, you could set up a pre-selected altitude, and we want to go to 3,500 feet. So go ahead and set that first in your G5.
Okay, so 3,500.
All right.
Okay, it's set.
And then come up here and hit altitude, and this is again with the autopilot off, and it has 3,500 feet set because it picked that up.
Because it picked it up
from
because
the
it was in the source. Okay.
Right. So set that.
And set that.
And now your pre-selected altitude is set. So now if you wanted to, we could start climbing, engage the autopilot.
And it'll default to something, won't it? If I engage the autopilot by turning it on, it's going to go to 326, which is...
Well, yeah, it always defaults to selected track, but my point is the pre-selected altitude right now. So you engage the autopilot with the pre-selected altitude set. It defaults to 300 feet per minute and already starts climbing there as soon as you engage it.
And I can increase the climb by...
You press the knob.
The knob
to get your
cursor down there.
Yep, get the cursor over.
And just increase it to 500 if I want 500 feet a minute.
So you can see pressing the knob moves the cursor around. Altitudes, track, it adjusts what you're changes what you're adjusting. Okay?
All right.
So that's your pre-selected altitude mode. And once we get there, it will level off and altitude hold just like normal. All right, we're cruising along now, and I'm going to demonstrate the automatic envelope protection. That's what this AEP stands for right here. And basically what that is an overbake protection. And the way I'm going to demonstrate that is I'm going to roll the airplane into a 45-degree bank, and you'll see the airplane nudge me back. It'll actually take over for a moment, start rolling back, and then turn back off, just to get me added back to wings level.
Just to let you know something's not right.
Something's not right, yep.
Okay.
So the way we do that is we with the autopilot off, press mode. The AEP is now in standby, which means
the autopilot's off. You've got complete control of the airplane.
I still have complete control. Another way to say that is it's armed.
It's armed, standby.
Standby or armed. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is roll into that bank. We're clear right. And AEP just went active, and it's nudging my wings back towards wings level.
And then it goes back out once you're good. Okay, that's
and we can go to the left. AEP's active. Okay. It nudges me back, and then it turns back off.
So that's just a safety used a lot in the pattern, maybe, to keep you from stall spin.
I mean, it's
and base to final or something.
It could be. It's an overbank protection.
Okay. All right. So how does that differ from what AeroCruze calls the blue button?
Yeah. So I'm gonna first turn the AEP back off. Your blue button or your autopilot level button, that's a protection that is very useful if you were to get disorientated in the clouds, like in an unusual attitude or something of that nature. All you would have to do is come up and hit that. You see it says AP level, autopilot level.
That would be real handy, both for an instrument pilot that might experience vertigo in the clouds, or for a VFR pilot that inadvertently flew into the clouds and got disorientated.
Right.
And it levels the airplane.
So when you press that button, it goes into, you'll see it goes into 0 degree bank mode, and SBS 0, which is perfectly level.
Both pitch and bank are
Yeah.
level. Okay, so
I guess SBS 0 could
demonstrate that in
level.
an unusual attitude.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
And that's another way they talk about engaging the autopilot, although it's probably not a standard way. I would say the most standard way to engage the autopilot would always be just pressing the knob, but you'll see how you could do it with the AP level button.
So you do an unusual attitude and tell me when you want the blue button pressed.
Okay.
And I'll just act like a
Romeo crossing.
All right.
1 and 191.
Okay, you're pitched up about.
All right, I'm disorientated. Press it.
Press the blue button.
Bank 0, SBS 0. The airplane's leveling.
And by itself, it went to level flight.
And then after a few seconds, it's going to go back to the track mode automatically. There it goes.
Okay.
And now it's basically the same as if we just engaged the autopilot with the knob.
Okay, let's try that one more time. Both a nose up and a pitch to the left, maybe.
Okay, so
you tell me when you want to.
Gonna disengage the autopilot, holding the button for 2 seconds.
All right, so autopilot's off.
Autopilot's completely
You're in control.
off.
And you're disorientated in the clouds. Pitch up, pitch down,
and go and press it.
Pressing the button. The airplane levels.
0 degree bank, SBS 0. And now I'm level. And it goes back to selected track.
Pretty good safety feature.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, so we are now headed to Ribco as our initial approach fix on the RNAV-15 approach at Lawrence. And I'm just hand flying it there right now. I'm going to go ahead and have you take the airplane.
Okay, my airplane.
You have the airplane. And I want you to set up the autopilot for the approach. So the way you're going to do this is first just engage the autopilot by pressing the knob.
Okay.
Then come up here, flip to your GPS source.
Okay, source will go GPS.
And you gotta wait for the E to go out, so it disconnects from the G5. There it goes, you're in GPS source.
Okay.
Press mode. Now you're in GPS.
So now it's tracking.
Yep.
Okay.
And then at this point, we also want to get down to 2,700 feet.
Okay.
So you're gonna press altitude.
Altitude.
Dial in 2,700 feet.
All right, there's 25, push the knob, and
there you go.
200 feet. Whoops. Boy, that's sensitive.
Yeah, it is.
Okay,
Back up, and then push in and twist 27. There you go, then set that by pressing the knob.
By pressing the knob, okay.
And then let's go down at, I don't know, 500 feet a minute.
500 feet a minute. So we dial in a -5.
Yep. 500 down arrow, and then set that.
Set that.
And you're set. And then we set it up here on the G5 for practice.
For 2,700. Okay, so now we're coming down at 2,700 feet, or 500 feet a minute to 2,700 feet. We're headed for Ribco, and at Ribco, the autopilot, since we're in the GPSS mode, should fly the
our course reversal.
Okay.
Which it's going to just do a parallel entry and then fly over Ribco the second time as our intermediate fix. Once we pass Ribco the second time, something else is going to happen, and we'll talk about that when we get there. Okay, so we just crossed our intermediate fix, and the GPS went to LNAV plus V, so we're getting an advisor glide path here since this is a non-precision approach, but it would be the same on a precision approach. You can see our glide path is alive. We're getting LNAV plus V up here. Same thing up on the top G5. And on the autopilot here, because we were in altitude hold mode, the glide, it says GS arm, glide slope armed, which means it's going to capture that glide path when it comes down and fly it down. There's only 2 ways you can get that. That's get the glide slope to arm. That's either being in altitude hold, like you are most of the time, like we just were, or in SBS 0. In either of those 2 modes, the glide slope will arm on the approach, and you also have to be below the glide path for it to capture. So we'll wait for that to happen, and then you'll see what happens on the autopilot next, and it will follow it down. All right, the autopilot went to glide slope coupled. Now it's just going to follow that glide path down, and you can pull your power back.
Traffic 172, Foxtrot Romeo, left base, runway 15 Lawrence.
And Lawrence, traffic Skyhawk 091 is on a 5-mile final, runway 15, full stop. Lawrence. All right, glide path is coupled, glide slope is coupled. Now
And
it's just following.
It's flying the approach for us.
Flying the approach on down. We just have to make sure we turn the autopilot off before we get to 700 feet AGL is placarded.
And we're controlling our airspeed down the approach with our power setting.
The easiest way for you to be able to turn the autopilot off when we get down there is just hit your control wheel steering button.
Okay.
Just press it.
Okay, we're going through, going up 1,800 feet. And our 700 feet turn-off point on this would be what, about 15?
We'll call it 1550.
1550, okay. Going through 1720 now. There's 1550. I hit the control wheel steering button. It turned the autopilot off.
Yep.
And now it's my airplane.
Lawrence, traffic Skyhawk 091, short final 15, full stop. Lawrence.
And Lawrence traffic 172 Foxtrot Romeo, left downwind, runway 15, traffic inside Lawrence.